hand raising feature that I will be able to see. I apologize, host MT, for recording. I did not remind you. I'm glad that you remembered that. So this meeting is being recorded for everyone, so for future viewing and references. As for the attendees, those are our guests who have come and joined us this evening. I want to thank you ever so much. There is going to be an opportunity. I will open it up for public comment in just a second here. And at that time, we will unmute you. You do not have that option to unmute yourself. So please use that hand raising feature. If that is something that you are unfamiliar with, at one point, I will go ahead and unmute all of you, and please ask to be recognized by this committee. All right, well, the first thing on the agenda is public comment. So we're going to go ahead and start with that. If for the other supervisors who are on this committee, you can see the public comment by clicking your view all attendees, and you will be able to see who's in attendance with us this evening. And also for the public, all supervisors that are part of the Government Services Committee are present, except for Supervisor John Wish. I will just announce them just in case you are a call-in. So we have myself as the chair of this committee. I am Melissa Catrillion, and I represent the 4th District here in Racine County. We have Vice Chairman Scott Meyer, who's also present. He represents the 16th District. We also have our secretary of this committee, Nick Dembski, who is present. We also have Fabi Maldonado representing the 2nd District. We have Steve Smetana representing the 3rd District. And we have Emily Lawrence, who is representing the 10th District. Did I cover everyone? Shake your heads, nod your heads. Okay, very good. We also have two very special people that are on our committee. They are our youth. And in just a second, you will be able to hear a little bit about why the youth two youth representatives are here joining our committee. So back on to public comment. I'm going to open up my attendees, and I'm going to look for hands being raised if we are opening up to public comment. Host, would you please unmute Susan Sheldon? Please, Susan Sheldon, could you please, even though I know your name, announce your name and your address, please?
Hello.
Hi, Susan. We can hear you.
Okay, wasn't sure. I'm Susan Sheldon from Burlington, Wisconsin, 100 Exeter Street.
Thank you.
I'm in the 20th district of the county. And my question is, it's come to my attention that in the budget, there is a line that is calling for a $350,000 armored vehicle to be purchased by the county. And I'm wondering, I have a couple of questions based on that. Is it needed? And if so, why? And how many other armored vehicles are there in the county already? I don't know if the city of Burlington has one or not. I don't know if the city of Racine has one. And I don't know if the county has other armored vehicles. I tried to find these things out, could not find that out. I do know that there are some here in the town of Burlington at the armory. So I'm just wondering if the amount of money, $350,000 for an armored vehicle, would be money well spent when we have so many other things that require our funds from our taxes. That's the end of my questions.
Thank you kindly, Susan. We will be muting you. Once again, thank you for contributing to this committee's public comment period. Is there any other public that would like to speak? Please use your WebEx raising hand feature. I am seeing no hands being raised, but I'm going to ask the host to please unmute all the attendees, and I will ask the question once again. All right, all attendees, your microphones are muted. I'm going to ask, is there any public comment who would like to speak? Please announce yourself. There is none. Could you please mute the attendees again? doing so. The next on the agenda is the chairman's comment. The one comment I do have before proceeding on this agenda is just to talk a little bit about our responsibilities of government services, not only for the public, but for our new supervisors and those who are new to the committee. What I'm going to read actually comes right from our website on racinecounty.com. So the Government Services Committee, we are responsible for the coordination of the legislative policy with and facilitation of the work of the judicial branch and of the constitutional officers and the department headed by them. These committees shall have referred to it matters related to the changes in the rule or ordinances associated with the constitutional officers and their departments, which are clerk of courts, county treasurer, register of deeds, county clerk, sheriff, and district attorney. That is just an excerpt, and there is a reason why I wanted to recite that, because with us this evening is one of the constitutional officers who will be our guest presenter. But before we go into that, I would ask one of our youth and governance, Sophia Sandoval, to please recite what we have before we start a committee.
Am I good to go right now?
You are. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, we, myself, Sophia Sandoval, and Willow Newell are members of the Racine County Youth and Governance Program, and we will be participating in tonight's meeting. This program serves to empower youth in Racine County by encouraging us to participate in local government. We have agreed to abide by the applicable standards of conduct that would govern any elected county board member. While we are encouraged to participate and are allowed to have a non-binding advisory vote on matters before the committee, all formal action taken by this committee will be based solely on the binding votes made by the county board supervisors.
Very good. Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking once again. Thank you so much. This item that is before us this evening is one that is not an actionable item. It is just informative. So I am going to now ask Sheriff Schmaling, please announce yourself, your guest. And the agenda item is for the overview of the Racine County Sheriff's Office and their duties and responsibilities within it. So thank you so much for being before us.
Absolutely. Can you hear me? Very good. So I'm Sheriff Christopher Schmaling. Seated to my right is Lieutenant Carrie Madrigal. Lieutenant Madrigal is in charge of our training and standards for the Sheriff's Office. And I want to say thank you tonight for inviting us. I know this is, I guess, a bit new for all of us on this webcam. I wish we could all be in the same room together and share some stories and have a better understanding of these challenging times that we're all facing. But I do want to give a very brief overview of the Sheriff's Office and responsibilities, and we do have a lot of them. Tonight, I'd like to begin with the county jail and some of the things we've been doing with the jail. I am pleased to report that since the COVID pandemic started to make its way onto the news, and we were all deciding as a community what we were going to do, the Racine Sheriff's Office had several meetings, daily meetings, and sometimes multiple times a day to talk about what we could do to prevent the spread of COVID-19. We weren't sure to what extent. I know there was some talks about a million American lives were going to be lost and the hospitals were going to be overrun, and we were just as scared as everyone was as well. But we took early steps, early precautions. Some of the steps we took is we stopped accepting nonviolent inmates into our jail. We changed some of the staffing schedules around to accommodate, it was actually longer shifts, but it allowed them more time away from other people, more time at home with their families to help isolate. We took a very strong look at all of our operations, one-man squads. We took a look at the calls for service they were responding to. Everything we did in the jail, we started a program where we were cleaning the jail 8 to 10 times a day, wiping door handles off, just basic precautions. We started a sewing program in conjunction with the Ellsworth Correctional Institute, as well as our own inmates in the Racine County Jail, using and leveraging some of our partnerships in Racine County especially those fabric stores, Joann Fabrics, Sew and Save, to name two of them. Also, some of our faith-based community members also had some sewing clubs. We leveraged them, and we were able to, all done and said, create 10,000 homemade masks that we could distribute not only to our first responders, but to also several businesses in the area. And Racine County has 18,000 people that are at risk as well. So we're actively working with nursing homes, long-term healthcare facilities to make certain that are less fortunate and those that are at higher risk of COVID-19 have the proper PPE. So we're very, very proud of that. All done and said, I'm proud to report today, we have 0 inmates in our jail that are positive for COVID-19. We have 0 staff members that are positive for COVID-19. Some of our surrounding communities have not been so fortunate. We chose to take a very proactive step very early on, and it has paid off dividends. And I'm hoping and praying that we continue on that trend. Some of the inmates that we have had in our jail that were positive for COVID-19 some time ago came in to our facility and announced that they had COVID-19. They're immediately isolated, and we took enormous steps to keep them away from the rest of the population to the extent that we could. As a result of all of that, we're able to keep our staff, our frontline, our inmates that we were responsible for healthy and safe. So we're very, very proud of that. Moving on to our courts, as you know, the courts have been on hold, handling only the cases that need to be handled that are before them. The civil piece, I think they're thinking about reopening soon. There's been a lot of talk about that. In terms of our patrol operations, we have been doing a phenomenal job with patrol. It is a different way of doing business. We are asking our citizens during traffic stops, as an example, to perhaps just hold their identification out the window for us. If we respond to a home for a reason, we ask the citizen to come out of their home to talk to us one-on-one rather than going to their home to lessen that exposure for both of us. We have found that has paid off dividends again because none of my patrol staff are sick either. Interesting enough, during this entire pandemic and during the entire civil unrest that we have been experiencing across the country, and more specifically here in Racine County, we had not had one single sick call of a deputy on patrol or investigations. That shows an enormous amount of respect for their community, dedication, and commitment. And I'm very, very proud of each and every one of them. They have to undergo long 12 to 16-hour shifts, 6 days a week, standing on that front line, literally being called every name in the book and having items thrown at them and fireworks thrown at their feet to have them react and respond to it. Only to have the newspaper report that they were quote unquote stone-faced. All the while they were trying to maintain a level of professionalism while people exercised their rights to peacefully assemble. So we were making certain that took place. We assisted the city of Racine. I believe I provided no less than 30 deputy sheriffs. These men and women stood with the city of Racine police officers at the police department and near the city hall to allow people the opportunity to express their frustration and anger, which, by the way, we all share. At the end of the day, the patrol staff is doing well. They still are responding to a number of calls since COVID. We've noticed an uptick in domestic violence calls. We also noticed a uptick in calls for service relating to individuals who have mental health issues. Many of these individuals weren't able to get into the hospitals or see their primary care physicians to obtain the much needed assistance that they ultimately needed, and ultimately turns into a law enforcement function. Investigations, we continue to provide investigations. One area of concern for me, most of our referrals for child abuse come from the schools and or from their physicians. And naturally, when children could not get into see their doctors, as well as going to school, as we all know, those numbers go down. So my concern is that there are probably a lot of victims out there that it's grossly not being reported, and that is a major concern for me. Being a father of 3 children myself, to think that there could be children that are abused and there's no one there to help them is very concerning to me. I don't know the answer to that, but it is concerning, and I propose to this committee that is something we should take note of and think strongly of, as well as individuals that are victims of domestic violence. The Racine Sheriff's Office, myself in particular, have a very long-standing working relationship with the Women's Resource Center, and we continue to have a great contact with them. But it is disturbing to me to know that there are individuals in violent households that have no other place to go. Oftentimes, their only escape was to go to work, which they're no longer working, or their only escape was to go somewhere else other than in that abusive relationship. So that is also concerning to me as well. And with that, I did want to address the one citizen who came on. I respect her opinion, and I want to answer the question with respect to the recently purchased armored vehicle that the board had approved prior to all this civil unrest. The rescue vehicle that we had requested is just that. It is a rescue vehicle. This particular vehicle isn't a large military vehicle like the current one we have in our fleet, which is rapidly ending its usable life. The rescue vehicle that we wanted is in response to not civil unrest, but when we have situations, and it's not going to be long before we go back to some normalcy in our lives, where school becomes back in session, and we're just off the heels of the situation that happened at Miller Coors, where we have active shooters, where it's important for law enforcement to get in there where seconds count to be able to help rescue people. Thus, the term rescue vehicle is to be able to pull up to the schoolhouse and be able to get children into a vehicle and moved away from an active shooting situation. To be able to go to a business and be able to load people in very safely and quickly and efficiently so that they can become safe again. So it is a rescue vehicle. The past one we have was an old military vehicle. I understand the appearance of it. I know it doesn't set well with a number of individuals, but that vehicle is ending its usable life. We've used that during snowstorms to help people who are stranded on the side of the road when traditional vehicles and SUVs wouldn't battle the snow. This vehicle is able to get through. So there's a number of uses for this rescue vehicle other than just its appearance as a military vehicle, as people like to refer to it as. Additionally, the rescue vehicle holds many purposes. When we look at some of the responses we've had just as of late, not just here in Racine County, but assisting the Kenosha authorities and more specifically Milwaukee, had some major civil unrest. We had gone there and sent a number of deputies to assist them at their request. And that vehicle, people were actually shooting at us. We had deputy sheriffs in that vehicle. Had they been in a traditional vehicle like we all have driven in the past, those rounds would have pierced that vehicle, and our squad cars would be no different, and we would be burying some of our deputy sheriffs here today. So that rescue vehicle serves a multitude of purposes, and it saves lives and it helps protect our community. And that is why I requested that several months ago, and that is something that we definitely need to have in our fleet. To answer the second half of the citizens' comments, who all has rescue vehicles in this community? I believe the city of Racine has one. I don't know how old it is or its working capabilities or its availability for that matter. I'm not certain about Burlington or any of the other surrounding communities, but I do know that we have an older one in the fleet. We have another one that is literally doesn't start anymore. So we needed this one. It's much more of a larger SUV than it is a tank, for lack of better words. It has a much better non-militaristic appearance to it that also suits us as well as a rescue vehicle for the reasons that I've already outlined. I think that pretty much sums up my operation. Civil process, as you can imagine, has been rather slow as well due to COVID-19, but I suspect that foreclosures will be on the rise as things go back to normal, where banks start coming in and foreclosing on homes due to people not making their payments. So I anticipate that'll be on the rise. Evictions, I'm certain, are going to go up given what has been going on. So that is obviously another concern that I have as our community starts to begin to return to some level of normalcy. Some of the other things I just want to touch on with respect to the county jail. We have worked very closely with Racine County Alternatives to Incarceration Program, RCAP. We work very much in cooperation with the courts, Human Services Department. It creates a sort of a pretrial risk assessment. It helps set bonds that are reasonable, pretrial monitoring. It gets individuals on a bracelet back out into the community and back out to work. We have allows them to get, again, employment, back with their families. and it provides also a level of obligation to them as well. And there's a level of accountability because we are obviously monitoring those bracelets, but it gets them out of the facility. We also have a program through the DRC that allows individuals who specifically have been arrested for OWIs. I know I talked to this committee in the past about it, and the program is rapidly approaching 3 years old, but we've had a tremendous amount of success with this program. It's essentially a kiosk that we have downtown, and the inmates are interviewed with respect to their OWI, providing there wasn't circumstances surrounding, as an example, OWI with injuries. Someone like that may not be eligible, but a traditional first offense or second offense, in some cases even third offense OWI would be eligible for this program. This program has had a 99% success rate and individuals, we had one individual in this program thus far has come back. And this program allows individuals to come in, they have to prove that they haven't been drinking by essentially blowing into this kiosk. And that allows them to go back home to their families, allows them to go to work and become productive members of our society again. And it has shown them, rather than through incarceration, rather than that, they have this level of accountability. And through that, we've been able to show that they haven't been revisiting our facility, which is a bonus. All done and said through these programs and several other issues that we have created throughout the county jail, we have reduced our jail population by well over 200 inmates. And I'm very, very proud of that. That has allowed us to do some interesting things in a jail, especially with COVID. It allows us to segregate individuals. It allows us for people that come in and say, as an example, that they've been around somebody with COVID-19 or they have flu-like symptoms, rather than putting them in with other individuals and possibly infecting other populations. We're able to separate them, segregate them for a period of time. It's sort of a two-tier system that we developed through the different day rooms that we've been able to free up, and it has created a much more safer and more healthier environment. I believe I've gone through this very quickly, but I want to be mindful of everyone's time. I'll go ahead and entertain any questions you may have.
Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking. Is there anyone from our committee who has any comments or questions, or any of the youth and governance? I see Fabi Maldonado's hand up, and next I will call on Emily Lawrence afterwards. Fabi, please.
Thanks. I'm very, very happy to hear the reporting that our COVID-19 reports are very low. We don't have much. I'm very grateful for that, Sheriff. I do want to. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I do want to bring up right now what's going on a national level. What happened in Minnesota? Essentially tackling the use of force here in Racine County. I have a few questions. First question is: does our local policy explicitly prohibit chokeholds or strangleholds?
Before you answer, excuse me, this is Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking. If the sheriff feels comfortable answering that, the one thing I will say, Fabi, and what is fantastic about this agenda item before us is that we get the overview of the sheriff's department. Would you mind muting your speaker just for a second? Okay, perfect. Thank you ever so much. What this could draw out is not only some great networks and open up communication for absolutely every supervisor. I want relationships to form, and if we could have an agenda item itself, possibly that could encirculate just these topics. But if the sheriff has something that he would like to address with that, but I'm wondering if Supervisor Maldonado, if it would be something that could be a topic all in itself, so we can really pull in, lots of questions and be able to formulate a little bit better of answers. But I was thinking for the purpose of this meeting is to start forming the relationships and the connections between the sheriff's department. But I will go ahead, and if your question was over, or if it was not, well, you just please unmute and finish your question, or we'll just hand it to Sheriff Schmeling and ask him what direction he would like to take. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me that interruption.
No problem. Thank you. Yeah, we could do that.
I think we're on mute now. Sorry about that. Thank you for the question. And I would agree with Supervisor Capillion-Becker. I will say this is that we do not train in chokeholds. I would have no issue making our entire policy available to you or any other supervisor or any member of our community for that matter, with respect to how we train. It is the training that we do undergo with regards to all of our training is done by the Wisconsin Standards, Law Enforcement Standards Bureau. We don't go off on a frolic of our own and train differently other than how Wisconsin Standards Bureau instructs us to train. I think off this conversation, you and I can certainly, or anyone else for that matter, we could have that policy out. We could look at how law enforcement officers are trained in Wisconsin. And we can certainly have a conversation about that and how Racine County deputies follow that and our policies and how they're structured, centered, and around the use of force as it is outlined and trained by the state of Wisconsin.
As Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking, thank you ever so much, Sheriff Schmaling, for entertaining that, and hopefully we can, maybe we'll see something, Supervisor Maldonado maybe coming out later, or at least open up this communication and build these relationships. So Emily, Supervisor Emily Lawrence, please, you're next up.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Sheriff, for coming before the committee. I'm a new supervisor and new to the committee, so I feel like I'm playing catch up on everything that your department covers. So thank you for giving us the overview. You mentioned with the pandemic and things, your department has been called for domestic violence and mental health. And those sound like community issues maybe that also require psychologists or social workers or other resources. Is there some percentage or amount of the sheriff's department budget that you might agree could be transferred to those sorts of county services to issues that maybe shouldn't be so law enforcement related, but might be better handled with other sorts of county resources?
That's a very good question. And I welcome, by the way. It's a pleasure to meet you. I wish we could talk in person here other than the phone. You're breaking up a little bit, but I believe I understand your question with respect to domestic violence and mental health calls for service. I recently had some conversations with our county executive about this very topic and with my command staff. And I've been doing this for 25 years, and I have responded to many of these types of calls ourselves. And oftentimes they are with limited information. We oftentimes don't know what we're dealing with until we walk through that threshold of that front door. And some of the things I am learning now is that would it be better to have someone with a mental health professional background to handle Chapter 51 proceedings, someone who is in need of emergency detention? That sounds great. And I think we could all agree that someone who should be helping someone who is going through a mental health crisis should have an expert level of training behind them, and perhaps it'd be better suited in their hands. But unfortunately, several other things come into play. Those situations become very dangerous. Oftentimes, we don't know that they have access to weapons at that moment, or they are homicidal before they are becoming suicidal. And those are all real life concerns. I have gone into houses where it sounded like one thing and it turned into something completely different. And my concern is this, is that if I knowingly send somebody in there who is sole purpose is to take care of someone's mental health, or deal with a civil trouble in a family home and everyone's sitting down and calm, that's one thing. But if I send them into that environment and it turns the other way and someone became violent because they're self-medicating with alcohol or drugs or both, unbeknownst to us, because this is a call at 2 o'clock in the morning. It'd be one thing if these calls came in between the hours of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, but in my 25 years, it typically doesn't happen that way. It typically is a call at 2 in the morning and I'm 2 blocks away and the bad thing is happening and there's just not time. Believe me, I would love to have someone sitting right next to me that has that level of expertise that could instruct me and give me better information. But that is just not the reality. I would be open to the dialogue. I would be open to hearing some suggestions or some additional training on how to deal with individuals. I know right now we have about 55% of our staff that are trained in crisis intervention. Why don't we have 100%? You're probably wondering. well, we have staff turnover. So when I have individuals who are fully trained and then they reach the level of retirement, then they leave, I have new recruits that come aboard. And through all the training, the 17-week law enforcement academy and the in-house 3 months of training, the crisis intervention is yet another piece of training that they have to go through. So we're constantly, and the goal is to get all of our staff trained at 100% of crisis intervention. But to have somebody with a level of expertise beyond crisis intervention would be preferred. But I just don't know how that would look logistically at 2 a.m. going through a front door of somebody's house who is homicidal, suicidal, has drug and alcohol dependencies, and a lot of unknowns, whether there's weapons in that house or not. I wouldn't want to only send an innocent person to that house and have another victim. That would be something very hard for all of us to wrap our minds around. But very good question, and I'm open to the dialogue and how we can make that happen.
Thank you for answering that. Thank you, Supervisor Lawrence, for your question. Next, I have Supervisor Meyer, please.
I just want to make sure I get unmuted there. Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, Lieutenant Madrigal, for spending the evening with us and bringing us up to date on some of those issues and topics. My comment is we are all thankful for everything that you guys do day in and day out, and trying to stay positive and upbeat in these times has got to be hard for you and your staff. How are you trying to keep the staff motivated and positive? I mean, you must be doing something correctly, obviously, with the nobody's calling in, in sick time or requesting additional time off during these times of crisis. So what are we doing differently to keep our staff motivated and positive during these times?
Sorry, I just now unmuted us. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. You probably see my mouth moving, nothing coming out. So now I'm on mute. So it has been challenging for us. And I can tell you that our staff, for lack of better words, they lace their boots up the same way everyone does in this conference call. They're citizens of our community. They shop at the same grocery stores. They go to the same churches. Their children go to the same schools. These are human beings, and they have thoughts and feelings, and they're just as concerned, and they are just as sickened by what we've seen in Minneapolis as well. The badge in Minnesota was certainly tarnished, but I can tell you here in Racine County, our badge still shines. We have a level of professionalism, in my view, like no other. What had happened in another state was a very poor reflection on law enforcement across the country. And it's sickening to my staff, and they're trying to show our community. And we have taken some great steps. And I got to take my hat off to this very board who approved body cameras and levels of transparency and working very closely with our community partners, the NAACP, our church, our faith group organizations, and others that have come forward over the years with us, and we continue to work with those organizations to provide us some level of hope that this community still does, in fact, care about its front line, about its individuals that put their lives on the line each and every day. I watch these men and women stand there recently in the city of Racine and having bricks and fireworks and being called every name in the book thrown at them, only to have them stand there and just take it and come back the next day for another 12 to 16 hours of that. 6 days straight. They've been and then dealing with COVID-19 as well, and also trying to keep them, not only themselves healthy, but their families healthy and safe as well. Having your life threatened, it has been a challenge. So what are we doing to maintain that? We've been talking to them, been working through it. We assure them that there are going to be better days. But I think right now more than ever, we really, really, truly need our community support. They need to hear from our community that we support them. We're looking for change just like everybody else. We're at the table. We want to have a meaningful dialogue. But right now, we need to know we are supported, and we need prayers, to be quite frank.
Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking. Thank you so much for the question and the answer. The next I have is Supervisor Nick Dembski, please.
Can you all hear me? Great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much to Schmeling and to Lieutenant Madrigal for giving us some of your time today in what is clearly a time, an era where your time is a highly rare resource or precious resource. I have a few questions. I'll limit myself to just maybe like three. But first, I'll just say again, echoing what some of the other supervisors have said, just want to thank you for your leadership that has resulted in 0 staff members and 0 people in custody of the jail apparently dealing with COVID-19. You can't really ask for better metrics than that. So that's amazing to hear. And also, I just want to say something that the sheriff also commented on with bringing the numbers of the jail down. Been very impressed by that too. We fortunately get updates on who's in custody at the jail every day and just watch that number whittle away. So thank you for your leadership on those issues. And obviously it's having good results. So the question that our public commenter asked about the armored vehicle, I've been getting some questions. I think that's just a sort of hot issue right now. So I got some questions from some community members on that too, particularly regarding the other vehicle that you had mentioned, Sheriff Schmeling, the bigger armored vehicle. I don't know what the name of it is, but I know that, as you mentioned, you all, I don't know, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the involvement that you all have had and that your department has had in Milwaukee County lately. Just because that was mainly what I was getting questions about from constituents on this issue. People reaching out. I actually hadn't seen this, but people reached out and said, hey, I'm seeing on the news that Racine County Sheriff's Department is here and that they have this huge article. So maybe you could just speak a little bit to that and at least give me some information to be able to bring back to those people who have been reaching out to me. Start with that.
Certainly, very good questions. Let's begin with the. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, let's begin with the first part is why would Racine County be in Milwaukee County? I guess I look back at history. In my 25 years of law enforcement experience, it is not uncommon to see law enforcement helping out other communities who need help at that time. It's not uncommon to see Kenosha County in Racine County. In fact, when we had a tornado a number of years ago, Sheriff Beth from Kenosha County sent a dozen squad cars and emergency equipment to Racine County to help our citizens because we were overwhelmed with calls for service. Milwaukee County has been in our county to assist us. The State Patrol has been here to assist us. So when they need our assistance, we also want to be that good community partner and help another community out. So that is the reason why we're there. We were requested to assist them because they were, quite frankly, getting overrun. There were buildings being burned and officers being shot at, and they requested our armored vehicle to assist so they could get into some of these zones to help out and rescue certain individuals who needed to get out of that hot zone, if you will, for lack of better words. So we were up there, and that is the reason why you've seen the Racine Sheriff's Office armored vehicle up there. What is that armored vehicle? It was given to us through the military program. It was designed as a rescue vehicle. It was designed to go into hot zones, to areas that people are shooting at individuals, people that are throwing Molotov cocktails. It can withstand a lot. We're able to get into areas that, quite honestly, a normal squad car couldn't get into. We're able to bring people in and out of facilities and bring people in and out of to areas that, again, that we quite honestly couldn't get them into otherwise. Looking no further than, going back to school shootings, these vehicles become very, very helpful. Looking at Sandy Hook as an example, an armored vehicle in that community where you had elementary school children literally being executed. We're able to they and Sandy Hook were able to get children from a school rescued out of a armored vehicle out of that area safely. I suspect every one of those parents and grandparents who had their children pulled out of that building safely were more than grateful that law enforcement had a rescue vehicle of that magnitude when the need arises. This is not a everyday patrol vehicle. This vehicle doesn't shoot at people. This vehicle is just that. It's a rescue vehicle. It's no different than a fire truck. They need to do that to complete their job safely. I'm certain firemen wouldn't want to go into a fire without their fire truck. And when there's a bad situation, I wouldn't want to send my troops, my men and women, into an area to put them, knowingly they could be injured or killed, or citizens injured or killed had I not had that right equipment. So that vehicle has reached the end of its usable life. It's also very large. It's something that really isn't suitable for our community. So that is why I made the request several months ago to make that purchase. And the county board agreed overwhelmingly to support that measure to have that armored vehicle, which is the newer one that you're going to be seeing shortly is more of a larger scale SUV. Much more suitable for our area and not as militaristic looking, if I'm saying that correctly.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I'll maybe just ask some follow-up to that. Could you tell me how many, I'll say the follow-ups all right now. Could you tell me how many deputies went into Milwaukee County for that initiative? Does Milwaukee County not have a similar vehicle themselves? And if you're saying that that vehicle is going to be retired soon, do you know a timeline for when that vehicle will be retired?
I don't know the actual numbers. I know at that time we were experiencing civil unrest as well. Kenosha was experiencing civil unrest, and we were sort of stretched very thin at that time. So I don't have those numbers. I can certainly provide those to you, Supervisor Dembski. In terms of when we are going to retire the other vehicle, I suspect when things settle down a little bit, we'll have to have that conversation. I don't have the answer for you with respect to that with a date in mind. There's just, as you know, there's a lot going on right now on everyone's plate, and that is not something that's, I guess, at the top of my calendar right now.
I can speak to your first question. I can tell you that there was at least 8 to 10 of our staff that went up to Milwaukee while we had, additional staff here. Milwaukee also does have a similar vehicle. However, the incidents that took place in Milwaukee, there was many more locations. So there was need for, I guess, teams to respond to multiple locations. If that helps to clarify that.
It does. Thank you very much. Well, I think I'll pass the mic and give some other people opportunities to ask questions for right now. I will just say before I do pass it, one, just thank you all. I suppose what I'm going to say next is basically a reflection on the positive work that you all have done in the community. I think in this community, and definitely having been involved with the protests in this community, the law enforcement, is benefiting from a pretty positive reputation within those experiences of protest, right? Blocking off streets, protecting marchers, just making sure that, as Dr. King said, the right to protest for right is being protected in this community. And I will just say, regarding the activity of Racine County Sheriff's Department in Milwaukee County, my concern around that primarily is that, like, we're seeing other communities and other law enforcement in other communities not benefit from that same reputation, right? And Milwaukee's law enforcement, unfortunately, definitely has come under much more criticism and much more fire. And, according to a lot of sources at this point anyways, is guilty of a lot of misconduct. Again, whether you believe them or not, that's what a lot of sources are saying. So aside from just my concern about us wanting to be careful with our law enforcement, with who we are assisting, and what sort of reputations we might be putting onto our own reputation. I know that in a place like Minneapolis, I'm sure you all know this already, but misconduct in Minneapolis had gotten so egregious that, aside from the disbanding and everything that's happening there, the state of Minnesota has brought a civil rights suit against the Minneapolis Police Department. So aside from just it being a question of right and wrong, there's also the question of liability and finances on the county's end that I have concern about. I won't blather anymore on that. If any of you do want to speak to that, feel free, but I'll leave my comments there for the moment. Thank you.
Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking. Thank you, Supervisor Dembski. I will move on to the next commenter unless the Sheriff's Office, did you want to comment on that last statement? You can either nod. I can't tell if you're on mute or not.
There you go.
Yeah, yes, I would just, I appreciate Supervisor Dembski's comments. They are certainly well taken, and those are all considerations we take when we extend mutual aid. But we have been on the receiving end of mutual aid multiple times, and there is give and take. And when another law enforcement agency, whether it be Milwaukee or Kenosha or Walworth or Waukesha, or in some cases even further away, we have asked as Racine County residents for that same level of assistance from time to time. Nothing to this magnitude, but those comments are well taken, Supervisor Dembski. I understand. I certainly don't want that reputation. We do have a great law enforcement community here that cares deeply about its citizens, and we want our citizens to know that we're here for them. And we certainly wouldn't want others to feel that we are in some way endorsing what may be happening allegedly in other communities as well. So point well taken, and I understand those concerns.
Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking. Thank you so much. The next is Supervisor Smetana.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to, this is just a comment, and it's thanking Sheriff and the Lieutenant and their teams for everything they've done these past few months. It's greatly appreciated, and you couldn't have done it without you guys. So thank you.
You're very welcome, Supervisor Smetana, and welcome to the county board. I wish we could see each other in person, and I know we talked in the past, and I certainly appreciate your support and your kind words, and I'll certainly relay that to the rest of my team. And it has been a trying couple of months for us, but I can assure you we will get through this as a community. I have no doubt we are stronger and we'll rise to the top when this is over as a stronger community. A community that I hope begins to respect its law enforcement and understand that we are here for them and here to protect them. So thank you for that.
Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking. Thank you so much. And next we have our Youth and Governance representative, Willow Newell, if you would like to unmute.
Yes. Hi. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I was just wondering what you guys are doing as a department to add to the positive change. Are you guys doing racism training, and what's going on in that area?
Hi, Willow. First, I love the blue in your hair. Blue, so
Thanks.
One of my favorite colors. You know, I think as the training lieutenant, there is a continuous search for additional training to bring back to our troops, basically. And, you know, we would be remiss if we didn't pay attention to what is happening in the nation today. And while, you know, we have received a lot of, you know, cultural competence training when we went through the academy, and a lot of things that have been spoken about in professional communication skills. These are things that are like kind of pounded into our head when we're in the academy. But when we get out of the academy, we have training that continues. I mean, I'd love to say we're constantly training, but obviously we're constantly working. And, you know, we attend a lot of in-services. We provide a lot of training yearly. And part of that, you know, we're always driving the diversities, cultural awareness. That's always being driven home with the professional communication skills. However, as things are right now, it has, you know, kind of made me look outside the box as to what other opportunities are out there for us to bring back to our people. And I'm happy to tell you that I actually located an organization against racism. And I have spoken to a couple of people who have already attended this. It's a very well thought out program. It's a 3-day training. And we've already been in talks with the county executive, and we want to send 5 of our command staff to this training. It's sort of a train the trainer. It's something that once we attend, we can bring it back and then, you know, bring additional knowledge to our deputies. You know, I really believe that we do a fantastic job of, you know, dealing with the very diverse, Racine County is a unique county, really. I mean, we go from a very urban part of the county to a very rural part of the county, you know, just, and there's everyone in between, you know, there's so many walks of life that are within Racine County. And that's one of the things that I love. So while we recognize that and we continue to train our staff, you know, we are looking outside the box to bring more resources to kind of, you know, take us to the next level. You know, we're always trying to improve ourselves. That's our own competition. You know, every day we try to be better. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Just like a little follow-up question. What is like something, I guess, one thing or one or two things that is like involved in when you talk about like diversity? Like how exactly is it taught?
Okay, so initially it is, you know, identifying what our staff believes is diversity, right? Because there is that is a huge topic, okay? For some people it is, you know, the different types of religion. You know, for some people it doesn't have anything to do with race. For some people that's what they think of initially, okay? For others it is a sexual orientation, or it's what you recognize as, you know what I'm saying? There are so many different things. It is, you know, going to a different country and learning their ways of how they build houses. You know, that's part of diversity. It's like an onion. I mean, when I think of the word diversity, it's an onion. There are so many layers to it. And, you know, initially bringing people in to kind of recognize that, you know what I'm saying? In terms of really having their eyes and ears open to hear the different ways that people can do things, or the way that things are done over there, and having an appreciation that while, you know, Chris and I wear the same uniform, Sheriff and I, I'm sorry, wear the same uniform, we're very different in, you know, many ways, but it's not to say that, you know, whatever I say is right and that's just how it has to be. This is, you know, my way of doing things and he has his way of doing things, or, you know, he has a religious preference, I have a religious preference. Neither one is right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just, you know, what we believe. And, you know, I guess recognizing that and appreciating it, that's the other part of it, recognizing, appreciating, and respecting it. So I guess when we teach diversity, that's at least where we go with it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. That was very interesting.
Thank you for those questions. This is Supervisor Melissa Caprillion, Chairwoman, just speaking again. I see we have Supervisor Emily Lawrence once again. Your hand is up.
Yes, I wasn't sure if I could ask a second question.
You absolutely can. So that goes for the rest of the committee as well.
Thank you. I guess a couple of things on some of the comments. And Sheriff, you mentioned that you're the father of 3 children. I'm a mother myself, and my son is Black, and obviously I'm not. And he's become very aware. He's 11, and he's become very aware of what's been going on in Minneapolis and elsewhere. And he asked me, Mommy, is that going to happen to me? Am I safe here? I don't know what to tell him. I don't know what to tell him. And Lieutenant, you talked a lot about the diversity training and really getting people to understand that there are others who don't look like them or pray like them or love like them. I would suggest in the training that you're looking at, and maybe the workshop that you're talking about covers this, um, not just looking at that external training on diversity, but internally something called implicit bias. And it can be uncomfortable because it, gets people to look inside themselves and maybe confront some beliefs or some biases that they carry, maybe through no fault of their own, but just what they've internalized, in the society that they live in. So I guess that wasn't a question after all, other than what do I tell my 11-year-old black son when he asks me, Mommy, am I safe? Is that going to happen to me?
Well, first, I would like to mention that implicit bias is definitely something that is also covered through, recognizing the different aspects of diversity. It almost forces you. When I talk about, when we have our staff come into training, they have to be actively listening. Okay, they just can't show up and hang out on Facebook, right? They have to be actively listening, and we all know what that means. Two people can come to the table and have different opinions, but if they actively listen to each other and allow themselves to reflect, really take in someone's opinion. And while you don't think you agree with it, but we've all been in those situations where once you hear somebody out and you understand it, it kind of makes you go, oh yeah, maybe, that does make sense. I've always thought this way. It is exactly what you said, getting our staff to step out of their implicit bias, but that is something that is addressed. So I don't want you to think that that has gone unaddressed. Yes.
And just to comment on, I really respect your comments, and it's disheartening being a father myself and having to have a child ask you a challenging question like that. And, I was, my children used to ask me that when they were younger as well, when they would hear about a police officer that was shot and killed, if I was going to be next when they watched me walk out for my shift on third shift, and wonder if they're going to see their dad come home again. But the reality is, and I told them that 99.99% of the citizens that I, as their father, dealt with were good people that needed my help. It was just the occasional bad person. It's no different in law enforcement. 99.99% of us are good people that are there to help you, your family, your son. We have the best intentions in the world. The sickening actions that happened in Minneapolis are just that. They're disgusting to watch. I had a hard time watching that myself. I wish I was there to have intervened, which brings me to my next topic of discussion is our staff understand, and they understand they have an obligation to intervene should it be in a situation like that. And I don't care what your rank is. Those are actions that all of us need to stand up for. Your son and you and the community and those who are listening today need to recognize that we are a powerful law enforcement agency here in Racine County that truly do care about its citizens, truly do care about what we're all about. We want our citizens to respect us because we respect them. We're here to help them and not hurt them. But all it takes is the actions of a few around that make all of our badges tarnish, and it's disheartening. And we're trying very hard to work with our community to build that level of trust that is there. And I'm just asking for our citizens to give us that opportunity and be good partners with us and sit across the table like we are today over the computer, that is, and have this dialogue to make Racine County a better place and to make our community feel safe when they're around law enforcement professionals.
Both.
Woman Melissa Caprillion speaking. I saw some additional hands going up, and I apologize if there was a certain order that I might be missing, but I see that Supervisor Meyer, your hand is up. Is it still up from the last time, or do you have a second question, comment?
No, Madam Chair, I'm fine. Thank you.
Very good. Supervisor Melissa Caprillion speaking again. And I do see that Supervisor Smetana, is your hand still up from the last time, or did you have another comment you would like to make or question?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I forgot to take it down.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. All right, Supervisor Dembski, I see your hand is up. Did you have any additional comments or questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Before I ask a question, I will just express appreciation to my Willow Newell for bringing her own questions to the committee. Thank you very much for that, Willow. And I will just say to Lieutenant Madrigal too, I'm assuming that I know the training that you're talking about because I know this 3-day training that the county has been bringing into the community. I participated in it as a member of the library staff, which is my day job. And I would just say to both you and to Willow and to everyone listening that having experienced a lot of these models, I do think this is a very good model. And so hopefully, I'm thrilled to hear that you're bringing 5 command staff to it. I would, you know, we can maybe talk offline about this. I would definitely not. I would not try to impose upon them to go on and then teach what they learned to the rest of the staff. That may have not been what you were saying, but again, we can talk offline about that. And I'm thrilled to hear that they're investing in that training. That's great. So the question that I was going to ask is, you know, unrelated to anything we've talked about so far. People submit formal complaints for the sheriff's department, you know, or against the sheriff's department or whatever, or against the jail or for the jail, if when that issue arises, whenever.
We have found it often citizens come in and do an in-person complaint. There's also an avenue on our website to make that complaint. And I know I've heard complaints from the community prior to everything that's been going on as of late that they wanted to see more, make that easier, and how they could make that even anonymous. I heard one citizen ask for, and we always want information, but it becomes very challenging when we just get a bits and pieces, and we certainly have follow-up questions, and that person doesn't want to come forward. So, but I can assure you this: we don't get many complaints, and the ones that we do, we thoroughly investigate, and if there is, we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and when we make mistakes, we own them, and we work with the citizen, and we work with our policies and our procedures to correct them. One thing I should tell you is that I've noticed even though we don't get many complaints, the few complaints we did get were very easily shown by virtue of the body cameras. The body cameras have, and I want to thank the board, members of this board who voted on this a number of years ago. We, as a county, and I must brag about our county because I really believe we are true leaders in respect to transparency to our community. And I spoke to this board before about transparency and how important it is to be able to show our community what we're doing at all hours of the day and night, the very spoken word, and what other officers are doing as well. We've taken it one step further last year, and we added some technology to our existing body cameras, which became available, that the minute we take a weapon out of its holster to activate our lights and or sirens on our vehicles, it automatically turns on our body cameras. My fear, and I told this board that my fear was during a crisis, an emergency that an officer is in, he or she may not have the presence of mind to turn that camera on. And we have found that this technology removes that human error, if you will, or forgetfulness during a crisis to remember to turn that on. That has proven to be very, very helpful to us as well. The body cameras we use as a training tool as well to encourage our deputies to look back at that body camera footage, how our interaction was with a citizen. Could we have said something better? Could we have de-escalated that situation? We use it as a training tool, and it's been very, very effective for us. I think we might have lost connection. Are we still here?
You are.
Okay. I'm not sure if I lost you on anything, but we're talking about the body cameras and how they've proven to be very, very effective. And oftentimes we have been able to talk to our citizens who made a complaint and work with them through the body camera footage and address that situation with them before it took anything further. And I'm not sure if we lost connection here again.
You didn't with them. I think it's just with Nick.
No, we can still hear you. Let me see.
I think I'm seeing Supervisor Dembski, I think, is losing connection. I've seen some bandwidth issues coming on here. I hope I answered the question.
I did hear everything that was said, so thank you for that.
Chairwoman Melissa
For the
Caprillion.
requesting.
Very good. This is Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking. Am I being heard? Thank you kindly. All right, I would like to recognize Supervisor Maldonado, who has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I have one last question, Sheriff Schmeling. In terms of the policies and procedures of officers serving in the county, is that available on the website, or can it be available on the website? If it's not, thank you.
Absolutely, we can certainly make them available. All of our policies, procedures, our entire budget is available to the community. And in fact, when we talk about, let's just talk about one policy in particular, body cameras. That is something that I passed out to all of our supervisors. We had a very large community discussion a number of years ago about that. In fact, I worked very closely with George Nixon, NAACP president. In fact, he and some other community members had made some recommendations on my body camera policy. And we implemented those. They were fantastic, great ideas that I, quite frankly, did not think of, even after we implemented it. So I look at our policies as sort of a fluid document. It's a working document. And as our community grows, as our community changes, and as our community demands that we do different things, these are documents that will go back to the table. We'll be good listeners at the table. And in this particular case, after speaking with Mr. Nix, we recognized that that was something that we should have in that policy. And it worked out very well. And I continue to want that community input from our community leadership.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful that y'all are willing to work with us.
Absolutely.
Vice versa. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking once again. Willow, I do see your hand up, but I am not sure if that's for a second question comment or if that's from the last time.
I have one more thing to say. I wanted to say it, I was just thinking about it in my head, but I think it's a great thing that you all do have diversity training, and the way you guys do it is really good, because looking at different people's perspectives, diversity is something that's really important that a lot of organizations don't do now. But I do hope that you guys take the idea, or whenever you are doing it, just a suggestion to actually look at like the heart of the problem, especially what happened in Minnesota, looking at the history of fear of different races and stereotypes that come with those races. So the fear of Black men and the fear of anybody else. So like looking at just like the stereotypes and learning to address those, and making sure that your officers are addressing those and talking about those and working through those together when you guys are talking. That's all.
Absolutely. They're very well taken, and I can assure you that's exactly what we're going to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking. Thank you so much for your comments, Youth and Governance Representative Willow. There is one thing that's kind of a little bit off the topic, but it kind of goes into the question that was posed about what is the procedure for formal complaints. Sheriff Schmeling, I still am working with that constituent who has submitted a formal complaint, and we've been working with it for quite some time now. Would you be able to work alongside me or sign someone so I could see this to its conclusion, please? And this was in regards to this quote unquote mugshots, and how one of the equipment coming from, I believe it's from the county jail, is distorting the images that makes the Journal Times have to go ahead and try to manipulate those and change them, which they're no longer doing anymore. So that was the topic, and we were looking to see if there's an upgrade needed, maybe in the Phoenix system. So if you could think of a sheriff's deputy or whomever could work with me so I could finally see that to its conclusion.
Absolutely, and I hope you don't feel that we were ignoring that, but my understanding, and very briefly, we can have another conversation, but we have sophisticated county purchased equipment. Unfortunately, the Journal Times does not. I don't know. I really don't know how to correct that problem. I certainly don't want to spend tax dollars and give it to the Journal Times to upgrade their software, but I can assure you we have the finest digital equipment that we're using. Other news sources don't have an issue with it. The Journal Times does. I do know and have good working relationship with the Journal Times. I can try to work with our IT department and theirs to see if we could come up with a solution so we can put that to rest. And how about maybe tomorrow we can have an offline conversation about those details and how we can move forward and resolve that complaint.
I appreciate that. Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking again. I do appreciate that. We did kind of dig through it, just so you know, and there was going to, I believe I was working with Friend at the time, and that we were going to look to see there was something within the system. If there's something that can either be an upgrade, you know, we can get into that tomorrow, so I would appreciate that. How about you reach out to me when you're available? I believe you do have my phone number, so I'll just look forward to that phone call tomorrow. I don't see any more hands up from our committee members, but I would like to just thank you for both of you, Lieutenant, the Sheriff, for coming before us, humanizing your department, and also allowing for our committee too to also be recognized in the questions that come not only from the constituent base, but what our interests are. So we can start formulating these relationships, not only for us continuing supervisors or those who have been on before, but the new incoming ones. So I would like to thank you once again. And did you have any other comments that you would like to leave before this committee?
I would just like to, first of all, begin by saying thank you to Melissa and to all the other supervisors on there, as well as our guests as well. These are challenging times we're in. There is no doubt. But I really want to pride Racine County on being forward thinking. We're not a reactive agency. We're not a reactive county. We're very proactive. And if we just look back over time, some of the things that we have done to demonstrate transparency, to work closely with our community and be good partners. There's a reason why, as Supervisor Dembski pointed out, that our law enforcement was helping the citizens to their constitutional right to peacefully assemble. We wanted that. We wanted their voices to be heard. And that's just one example. And there are many, many more, but I've heard other agencies suggest that they should be the agency to follow. And I must tell you, I'm very proud of the work we're doing here in Racine County. There's a lot more we need to do, but we are the agency to follow. We truly are when it comes to technology, with body cameras, to policies, to working closely with our community partners. I believe we are true leadership, and I owe a lot of credit to the supervisors that are on this conference call today and other members of the county board who've been very, very supportive. Speaking of support, if I could leave with one thought, is right now more than ever, law enforcement, our deputies, our police officers on the street every day need your support, and we certainly need your prayers. So thank you very much.
Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion speaking. We thank you as well. I would just like to comment to the committee, this agenda item for this presentation, very so much fitting, because we like to bring our constitutional officers before this committee to allow you the opportunity to understand those departments a little bit better. But Supervisor Dembski did bring that to me, and why I mention this is because you have that opportunity as well. So if you have some ideas what you would like to see, or would like a better understanding of some of the departments, please reach out to me and I would be happy to oblige. And that goes to our youth and governance representatives as well. So with that, I would ask that there be a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Chairperson, can I just make one more? I always like to seize the opportunity. We've had a number of citizens well before this situation occurred, and I like to invite our county board supervisors and citizens, if they're interested in a ride along with our deputies. There's a lot of information that we can share with you. You can see sort of the day in the life, if you will, of some of the challenges that law enforcement professionals face on a day-to-day basis. As you know, we're 24/7, so we can accommodate everyone's schedule. I also invite those who want to make a tour through the county jail to see what some of the for lack of better words, the accommodations in the county jail. I think you'll find that it's a very clean environment, and we have a lot of great professionals in there doing the right thing. And I would invite members of our community and members of the county board to take me up on a ride along, take us up on a jail tour, have a better understanding of the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. It's sort of two sides to the coin. We're learning from our community, and I hope our community can learn from us as well. And through all this, I know I said this at the onset, but I have no doubt we're all going to rise stronger from this, and we'll get through this, and there'll be better days ahead of us. So sorry for interrupting, but thank you.
Supervisor Melissa Caprillion speaking. What a wonderful invitation. And I would challenge this whole committee. This should be the committee that actually takes him up on that offer, just because we do oversee and the constitutional officers like Sheriff Schmeling. So thank you so much for that invitation. And hopefully the other committee members, we can report back on those ride-alongs. So with that, if there's no other business, I would ask there to be a motion of adjournment, please.
Motion of adjournment.
All right.
Madam Chair.
Yes, yes, Supervisor Dembski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see that one of our youth in governance has her hand up before we close. Willow Newell.
Hi. I just want to let you know, Sheriff, that I would love to do that. So we have to get in touch.
That sounds great. Love to have you. Love to have you.
Great.
Done.
Supervisor Melissa Caprillion speaking. Thank you so much, Supervisor Dembski. I did not have that scrolled all the way down, so I appreciate that. All right, I did hear a motion for adjournment by, I believe, Supervisor Maldonado. Do we have a second?
This is Supervisor Lawrence. I second.
Fantastic. I don't think there's going to be any objections, so I am going to call the meeting closed at 7:17. Thank you, everyone, for joining this evening. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.